We're talking Zootopia with the head of Harvard's Museum of Zoology. Next on Science Goes to the Movies. Welcome to Science Goes to the Movies, a look at the stories of science and how they change our culture. I'm Faith Saley. Today we're going to talk about the Disney flick Zootopia. Joining us is James Hanken, the Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology at Harvard University, as well as the Director of Harvard's Museum of Comparative Zoology. Welcome, James.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Zootopia is the 2016 Walt Disney Studio animated film centering on the blossoming friendship between country bunny Judy Hopps and wily city fox Nick Wilde. As the first rabbit to join the police force of the city of Zootopia, Judy jumps right into a mysterious case of animals gone primal.
Probably best if you don't have a predator as a partner.
In the real zoological world, do animals overcome their predator-prey instincts?
Yes and no. The animal behavior is much more complicated than people tend to think of it. So we think of a predator and you're saying something that's always out to eat something, and it's growling and it's looking to tear something up. And prey are these meek little things that just kind of can't do anything, are helpless. That's not the real world. In the real world, predators, yes, they will consume other things on certain circumstances, but predators can often show very caring, behaviors, very sensitive sides, if you will. Best example would be a lot of the maternal behavior shown by female predators towards their family groups, and especially their offspring. And prey at the same time can be pretty nasty and pretty violent if they want to, or when the circumstances dictate. So it's the predator-prey, there is truth to predator and prey, of course, but it's a much more complex situation, much more subtle differences.
And also, we're predators, and we're not always out on the hunt.
Correct. We're an unusual one because in what we eat, we'd be classified by zoologists as omnivores. We eat both animal, we're evolved to eat both animal and plant food. So yes, we're part predators, but we also graze or eat plant matter.
And at any given moment, one animal's prey is the predator of another animal, right?
Exactly. And, except in you could say, there are certain prey that are herbivores, meaning they themselves eat plant matter. They don't typically consume it, so they wouldn't be regarded as predators. But yes, there's some predators that are in turn they're the prey of larger predators and so forth. So again, it's a much more complex situation. Depends a lot on context.
Do some animal species get along better with other species?
Absolutely. Some, getting along can reach really extreme proportions. There are many examples of so-called mutualisms where different animals of different species benefit by interacting with one another.
What's an example of that?
An example of a mutualism would be, one of my favorites are the cleaner wrasses or cleaner fishes, which are fishes that are found in many different coral reefs around the world. They're pretty small. They take up residence in a particular part of the reef, and much larger fishes, including sharks and other predators, which under other circumstances might eat this little cleaner wrasse, in effect almost form a little line or a queue, and they move up successively, and the cleaner wrasse will then go about picking off parasitic invertebrates off their skin, off the outside of their body, and sometimes the predators will even kind of open up their mouth and they'll let the cleaner wrasse pick either food particles or parasites around their mouths. So in that case, the predators suppress their predatory instincts, if you want to call it that, and let this fish groom them, in effect. So that's a mutualism. Both species benefit by it, and it's clear how it's evolved.
We all do a lot in the name of looking better.
That's right. Yes,
that's so adorable. There's like a little assembly line, everybody getting cleaned.
Yep, absolutely.
Countless reviewers have written that if you go too deep into the philosophy of this movie, the feel-good spirit of the story turns back on itself in an ugly way. In the animal kingdom, carnivores are carnivores and herbivores are herbivores, and they each act in certain ways. Scientifically speaking, what liberates us from, such a rigid biological path?
Well, it's pretty evident in the movie that one of the reasons why these animals in the movie are so attractive, enticing, is because they take on a lot of human traits. But, in what sets humans apart from most of the animal kingdom is that we have our consciousness and our ability for rational thought and understanding of what our behaviors are, what our instincts might want us to do, and our ability to change them or to do something other than we might instinctively want to do or find ourselves doing.
And absolutely no other species of animals has that
well,
rationality or ability to override instinct?
It depends. That's traditionally been the understanding, but increasingly these days, scientists are starting to find evidence. I don't think it's necessarily widely accepted yet, but it could be that there are some other, particularly mammals, although in some cases some birds, have seemingly some kind of, it's hard to say consciousness, but they do act in ways that are human-like, if you will, in certain ways. Well, some whales, mammals that form social groups, and so show concern for others and seemingly grieve when they lose elephants, some whales, things like this.
What do you think of the anthropomorphization of animals that we constantly use to tell children stories?
Well, I don't see anything wrong with it. In this particular case, I think that this movie is both, I can see why small children would really enjoy it. It's also written at a much higher level, so there's a lot of jokes that only the adults surely can get. The children are not old enough to understand some of these things. I don't mind the anthropomorphism, as long, I guess, at the same time, somewhere in the education of those children, at some time in their lifetime, they come to understand the truth about these different animals too.
I see it in my own children that a lot of what we growing up to think that bugs are icky or sharks are super scary happens culturally.
Right. Yeah.
Like my 2-year-old daughter has a shark towel,
yeah.
and it was given to my son, but she was supposed to get the cute bunny and the pink unicorn, and she never wants to wear them.
Well, there are stereotypes.
Yeah.
So if people think of sharks as these nasty, terrible creatures, well, yes, if you're a small fish and they happen to want to eat you, they're pretty terrible. But sharks are marvelous creatures in their own right, and they have a place in nature, and we will suffer, and are suffering terribly environmentally by losing them. And so people need to understand that side of things. And I'm a herpetologist by formal training.
And when you tell people that you're a herpetologist,
right.
What do you think most people think that you do or study?
Well, many of them say, I study herpets. That's what you should study if you're a herpetologist.
Nobody thinks it's STDs?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, yeah, not the group I hang out with. Maybe the group that you hang out with.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. But so you study snakes?
I study amphibians and
reptiles. That's your jam,
right?
Okay.
Right. I'm into that. And so people think, well, reptiles, they're slimy and slithery and they're untrustworthy and so forth. And first of all, some of that is just absolutely false. They're not slimy. They're
very trustworthy. All the snakes I hang out with are very discreet.
They've always paid me back. I don't have any complaints. Their skin is very dry. They're not slimy. They have their own set of marvelous adaptations. I've had them as pets. They're quite easy to take care of, and they're not necessarily dangerous. And it's just there's a lot of misunderstanding.
Well, my friend Mark Siddall, he's a curator
Yeah.
at the American Museum of Natural History, and he's been on the show. He's a leech guy.
Yeah.
He says that this Disney film should be called Mammaltopia.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
Yeah, we're so fixated on what we deem cute.
What we sarcastically in the profession call the charismatic megafauna, because there's people are just charmed by furry animals and large furry animals, and they capture all of the attention of the public and the media. Meanwhile, there's all these other spectacular animals out there that don't get anything close to their due, and yet they should. So yes, and the movie is almost all mammals. It should be called Mammalotopia. So yeah, believe me, there's no leeches that make their appearance in this movie. So.
In the film, the animals are poisoned by this flower called the Nighthowler.
Yep.
and it makes them all change their behaviors.
Yep.
Is that flower exist?
It changes their behavior in a particular way in the context of the movie, which makes them go, they say, go savage, meaning here you have all these different species of animals which are getting along and by and large just fine in a civilized community and so forth, and yet they eat the juice from the flower and suddenly they go savage. They revert back to their predator. The predators revert back to their predatoriness. There's nothing called the Nighthowlers, and so called that in nature. There are, interestingly, a lot of species of plants that do produce chemicals naturally that do affect behavior of animals. I mean, we're very familiar with some of them. One is called alcohol, of course. Another one is called marijuana. I mean, there's all kinds of plants and hallucinogenic plants on humans. But the one that I'm particularly interested in the context of this movie is called the loco weed. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It's a common name of a series of...
Loco, like crazy?
Yeah, loco weed, which is a common name for species of plants in western North America. They're also found, many species are found in other parts of the world. And it's called loco weed in part because people don't eat it, but livestock often will eat it, cattle and horses, just on the rangeland. And if they eat too much of it for too long a period, I mean, they will ultimately die or be debilitated by it. And it makes them very sluggish, and they just don't do very well. And in some cases, they can become aggressive. It doesn't show the same signs that the Nighthowlers do in the movie, but it's an interesting case. And also, I was so sufficiently curious about this after the movie. I looked this up. Some of the flowers of loco weed look very much like the flowers of the Nighthowlers in the movie, and I wonder if the producers of the movie or the writers used that as an inspiration. So there's plenty of precedent for plant products to change behavior of animals. It's nothing like this. It's not like something where you give it to a dog and suddenly it becomes a wolf within a few minutes. Nothing like that happens.
Given that herpetology is concerned with animals that creep,
Yep.
I would like to talk about the creepiest of all creatures, reptiles, or at least most of us find them
Yep.
creepy. You
Yep.
clearly find them cuddly.
Right.
In all of American movie and TV history, we here at Science Goes to the Movies could only come up with 3 non-dinosaur good guys. Johnny Depp's 2011 animated chameleon Rango, Hanna-Barbera's 1960s Wallygator, the swinging alligator in the swamp, and of course, the Teenage Ninja Turtles. Is there anything that's remotely scientifically accurate about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Practically not.
Okay.
I mean, they're depicted as having a shell, a carapace. So what we technically term as the carapace, the upper shell on the top.
Can I just show off the one cool thing I know about turtles?
Please do.
The little squares on their backs?
Yes.
Called scoots, right?
Yes, scoots.
I just love knowing that.
Well, that's very good.
My 4-year-old would tell you that one too.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good. So yes, the carapace is made of scutes, dorsal scutes. And they also have the turtles have a plastron, another shell on the underside. And if you look at how it's being depicted there. But
with pecs, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But those are actually scutes as well.
Okay.
In the real thing. But you'll also notice that Ninja Turtles are depicted with teeth.
Oh, yeah.
Turtles are toothless.
Right.
The earliest fossil turtle had teeth, but all modern turtles lack teeth. So there's virtually nothing. And even they have teeth, of course, because if I'm not mistaken, one of the mutant Ninja Turtles eats pizza.
That is true.
Impossible to eat pizza without.
But I mean, in your opinion, are turtles badasses?
No.
Really?
No.
And you study these? Okay. I thought you were going to champion them.
No. They're
adorable.
They're
Okay.
adorable. They're absolutely adorable.
How about this though? Some turtles can live like 100 years,
Yes,
right?
yes, very long lived.
So a turtle's adolescence could last about 30 years.
Yes, so a lot of turtles are teenagers.
Okay.
I guess let's put it that way.
Okay.
Another way to think of it. Yep, that's absolutely true.
Are movies unfairly portraying reptiles? I mean, are they misunderstood in our culture?
Well, I mean, think about Snakes on a Plane and Anaconda, all of these movies and so forth. These are not favorable depictions of snakes. I mean, they may be accurate in terms of depicting them as big predators, predatory animals and so forth. But again, snakes are, a lot of snakes aren't nasty. They don't pose any danger to humans. They serve a very important role in nature. They're marvelous creatures that have evolved all these very sophisticated adaptations for detecting prey items and sensing temperature and so forth. They have, if not maternal behavior, they have all kinds of really highly evolved reproductive specializations. And so some of them are viviparous. They give birth to live young and so forth. So they're really quite cool. And what I find, knowing about the natural history of these things, is I find these things, and when as cool and as exciting as them eating, and when I introduce these topics or these facts to students, they do too. So I think the general public actually has the capacity to appreciate snakes and reptiles on another level if only the media would give them a chance and wouldn't just fixate on certain things.
I know you're not an evolutionary biologist, but why do you think it is?
Oh, I am.
Oh, you are?
Yes, yes. Absolutely.
Oh, forgive me. I know you're an evolutionary biologist, so you can answer this question.
Well, we'll see if I can.
What do you think it is about us that makes so many people so fearful of, say, snakes, and we're ready to watch, an entire Disney musical about a adorable lion? When in our past we probably had to run just as fast from lions as we did from snakes, right? They could all harm us. Why are we so prone to feel fuzzy about mammals?
I don't. Again, there are some people who have tried to see if there might be some, certain animals have instinctive behavioral responses to shapes of a certain size, or certain animals, small mammals, will, if you bring a silhouette of that looks like a hawk over them, they will immediately retreat. They sense a predator. So some people have actually suggested that maybe there's something in our human behavior that instinctively responds this way to snakes. But it's hard to really prove that when it could equally, if not more, for more compelling reasons, be this is just the societal context in which we live. For many of us, we never encounter snakes in nature, certainly in urban life. You never encounter them in your daily life.
But we don't encounter a lion either. And when you buy it, there are stuffed little lions for babies. But then think about how are you exposed to it
in a zoo, in the
safely,
media,
right?
and so forth. You're conditioned to respond to these things in a certain way.
Yeah. I take my kids to a zoo class, and they bring out a Madagascar hissing cockroach. And this is New York City. Cockroaches are huge and disgusting. If you ask me, do you think they're disgusting?
In the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought I have to be the role model for my kid. And by the way, Madagascar hissing cockroach, a little cuter than your Manhattan cockroach.
Yeah.
And I pet the cockroach, and so she was happy to pet it, and she loves telling people that she loves Madagascar hissing.
Well, when I take my class, I take a class to Costa Rica for spring break herpetology class, and we collect snakes and things in the field, or pick them up. We let them go again. And one of the things I always do when we get a snake is I'll hold it, and because some of the students, these are Harvard undergraduates, they've never seen a live, they've never touched them. They're very fearful. And I say, no, please, it's safe. I've got the head. Just touch it. And they're shocked. And then sometimes I'll let them hold it, and they're just incredibly surprised. It's just nothing like they had been conditioned to expect, and they come to realize, wow, it's okay. It's not such a big deal.
I'm curious, what's the gender makeup of your herpetology students?
Mostly female.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. We have no idea. Just that turns out that's the sex bias in the class.
Or maybe you're just a really hot professor.
Unlikely.
Frogs? Okay, frogs versus snakes. Frogs get a much better reception in the movies.
I work mostly on frogs and salamanders, so I can agree with that.
Okay. In real life, you can tell us, some frogs are really dangerous, right?
Actually, many species of frogs have some kind of poisonous secretions on their skin, and the ones that typically have the strongest poison or toxin are the most brightly colored ones.
Which is very considerate.
They're brightly colored. It's called regarded as warning coloration for obvious reasons. For humans, if you were to touch and you had an open cut, or if you were to ingest it, I don't know why you'd want to do this, it would make you sick. There's only a very small number that actually would infect. I only know of one, there may be others, but I'm only certain of one species of frog that really could kill a human just from a small bit of its toxin.
Is that the frog? Is that the frog? I think I've seen it. Is bright yellow? Or
Yes,
something?
it's called Phyllobates terribilis.
Okay. Like
for
terrible.
obvious, yes, for
Okay.
terrible, and it's found in the Choco region of Colombia.
Is that where?
South
Is that where
poison?
people,
Yes,
darts,
these are
right?
these are. It's used to tip these poison darts.
And would just that dart kill you?
It could. It could. In fact, in the article, there's a very wonderful study done by some herpetologists here at New York, at the American Museum of Natural History several years ago. And this was a very unusual scientific paper that talked about the biology of this species. And it also had a section on, the author got so into the working with the native peoples in Colombia that they wrote a part of their article about how to fabricate poison darts. And also there was a warning. Not many scientific papers come with a warning about how you're not supposed to handle these things. And they discovered inadvertently how poisonous this was as they were disposing, when they were doing their field work, they were disposing of paper towels that had been, used the frogs were living in these small boxes and stuff temporarily. And they just put the paper towels on a trash heap, and some of the local dogs ate them, and the local dogs died.
Oh my gosh.
Just from consuming the trash. Yeah, so it really is quite nasty.
I've heard that frogs are in some trouble these days.
Yeah, well,
What's
frogs
going
and
on?
amphibians in general, they've been since about 1985. We, the scientific community, have known on a global scale populations are declining, some cases precipitously.
Why?
Many species have gone extinct. Why? Just about everything. Habitat loss, they're extremely sensitive to pollution. There's a kind of a fungal disease that has been spreading worldwide that is decimating populations in rapid order. Climate change, making a lot of forests less humid, less rainfall and so forth, changing. Climate change, moving for Monte. I have a species named after myself, actually, in Sri Lanka.
What's it called?
It's called Pseudophilautus hankeni. And that's the good news. The bad news is that Pseudophilautus hankeni is found now at the top of a mountain. The only place it's found is the top of a small mountain in Sri Lanka. That's its natural range. And the bad news is that with climate change, the forest, as things warm up, the forest is in effect retreating higher and higher up the mountain, and with it the frogs. And within another 20 or 30 years, the forest, the climate will no longer be able to sustain that forest, and the forest will disappear, and with it, Pseudophilautus hankeni.
You can't go extinct. I mean, what do you do about this?
It's tough. It's
First of all, what is pseudo? To us means
Pseudophilautus.
fake.
Yeah, it's a fake philautus. It's just.
What's a philautus?
Philautus is another genus of frogs, meaning it gets very complicated. This is taxonomy. It's very.
It's important. It's named after you.
It's very well, but that's the first part of the name. That's not me. It has to do with taxonomy and how scientists took a genus called Philautus, and then they realized there were some other frogs that were lumped in there, but were in fact closely related. So they pulled them out of that group,
Fakers.
and they put them over here in Pseudophilautus.
Okay.
It's kind of a lack of originality there, and in the core. So it was hankeni is with those other Pseudophilautus.
So your last name is Hanken.
Yep.
Why was it named after you? Did you discover it?
I didn't discover it, but the scientist in Sri Lanka did a postdoctoral fellowship with me, so he was honored the species in my name.
That's a huge honor,
Yeah,
right?
it was quite nice. Yeah,
I mean, I would imagine that's why you go into the zoology business.
that's right.
Right?
Yes, and you can't when you discover. I named a lot of species of salamanders, and it's not proper to name them you can't name them about yourself.
Really?
So if you discover
This is why Donald Trump is not a zoologist. I
Right,
finally
no,
figured it out.
No self-aggrandizement.
I was wondering.
is possible or allowed.
So can you name it after your kids?
Yeah, you can name it
Okay.
about a lot of different things.
I think faith is up for grabs.
Well,
Next time you
if
discover something, I would be happy.
You play your cards right.
Okay, thank you. What is your favorite movie of all time having to do with animals in any way?
I can't think. I can tell you what my favorite commercial,
Please.
because there are some animal commercials that unfortunately they're not around. These days we see the Geico Gecko,
Yeah.
which is okay.
Do you feel like he's done his part in making, herpetology sexy?
Not as much as the Budweiser chameleons.
True.
Louis and Frankie. I think this was from the Super Bowl of 2008 or 2009. For herpetologists, this was This is the
You guys were high-fiving each other.
It just doesn't get any better than that. And we've been so disappointed that they haven't sustained.
Come on, there's got to be a sizable number of you guys. You have
We have no clout. We have no clout. And there's also the Budweiser frog.
Budweiser. 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 Budweiser.
Okay, now I know why you got into this game. It's beer.
Right. Well, yeah, it plays a big part. You should come to our conferences.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
James, thank you so much for coming by.
My pleasure.
Whatever we can't fit into this half hour, we'll share on our Science Goes to the Movies Facebook page. And if you want to watch past episodes, check us out at www.cuny.tv under the Science tab, or download our app to keep up with all the Science Goes to the Movies in one place.